Normally, you procrastinate on the tasks that you don't want to do, but I knew I was going to make a review of Anora as soon as I decided that I was going to do a movie review channel this year. It just took me 2 months to process my feelings, and I'm still actively processing them. Welcome to the channel, you motherfuckers.
Watch your profanity.
I finally rewatched Anora, Sean Baker's latest film. It won the Palme d'Or at Cannes. It is an absolute award season juggernaut. Frankly, if you haven't heard of Anora, respectfully, what have you been doing? But if you don't know, Anora follows a young New York sex worker who is hired by a rich Russian son of an oligarch to accompany him for a week, which quickly turns into a spontaneous marriage, which then quickly turns into a complete shit show when word gets back to the son's parents. The movie stars Mikey Madison, Mark Eidelstein, Yura Borisov, Karen Karagulian, and Vache Tovmasyan. You heard me right. This is a rewatch. I saw Anora mid-October, and since then, it's haunted me. During the movie, every emotion was fighting over my console.
You can't just bottle us up!
But I don't know if a movie ending has ever frozen me in my tracks like Anora did. The credits started to roll, and I could not move. Anora is a roller coaster, and I finally found the courage to ride it again tonight. Maybe I should start with my history with Sean Baker, the director. And I have no history. I know. I'm still learning to fall in love with cinema. I've heard the name Sean Baker floating about for years. I've just never gotten to watch any of his work yet. The Florida Project is actually high on my watch list because I lived about 10 to 15 minutes away from the community that's highlighted in the movie. And Baker always seemed like a director I could get into. To my understanding, he's great at highlighting a disenfranchised or misunderstood community and then lifting them up. And Anora is another exploration of sex work, but then also the Russian community in Brighton Beach and Brooklyn in New York. What an interesting angle to explore a large city like New York and then still make it feel very tight-knit. And I'm sure that community is not throwing ragers like they do in Anora every single night, but man, what a fun time it must be over there. And so we get into the ensemble of Anora, and oh my Mikey Madison, respectfully, she's absolutely gorgeous. But more importantly, she's absolutely a star in the making. I know she's been in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and in one of the Scream movies, and Sean Baker saw Mikey Madison in those two projects and said, I need her for Anora. What an honor to have a director approach you and say, I've had you in mind for this role. As Annie, she is a fireball that doesn't deal with BS, but she features an incredible vulnerability. She's just easily likable and relatable, and I want to be her friend. And then you watch Mikey in interviews, and she's a complete 180. Soft-spoken, incredibly poised and humble, and yet I still want to be her friend. You hear how she wanted to get the Russian language right, how she connected with the sex worker community, and she went to stripper camp and learned how to twerk, and then texted Sean Baker, I learned how to twerk. She was so excited for this role, she wanted to do it justice. It's that kind of dedication that makes me very, very invested in the movie. Honestly, I think she made a fan out of me for life. She's my current frontrunner for Best Actress this year at the Oscars. And Mikey Madison's performance really is nothing without the supporting men she gets to bounce off of. Mark Eidelstein, or Ivan Vanya, he's great. He's fantastic. He basically plays it straight like every single college freshman looking to party that you have ever met. He's hilarious, he's charming. His inflections and delivery and his dialogue add so much to his laid-back character. Those years of bridging youth and adulthood aren't that far behind me, so I can easily put myself in his shoes. Who am I kidding? I'm still living those years. I didn't even have a party phase like that. I went through depression instead.
Leave me alone to die.
Karen Karagulian is Sean Baker's regular in all of his movies, and as Toros, he is the authority figure and traditionalist. Very by the book, this is how things are gonna go kind of guy, which makes it only funnier when things don't go his way. And then there's Garnick, played by Vache Tovmasyan. Pure meathead muscle comic relief. I don't know if there was a line that he had that I did not at least smile at. And Yura Borisov as Igor, the quiet muscle that purely comes in completely outside of everything that's just happened. He's the character that ends up stealing most of the supporting cast attention with his interactions with Annie, but also his silent reactions. He has a lot of facial expressions that say much more than the dialogue he's given. A big motivation of my rewatch was to pay attention to Yura Borisov because everyone is championing him as a front runner for best supporting actor. I didn't see that on my first watch, but on my second watch, I absolutely do see it.
Now I really see what's going on here.
But you know what else clicked for me in Anora? The story and its execution are rooted in humanity. The characters feel real. Dialogue feels real. The arguing over each other, the emotions and confusion, it's all real. I truly feel like I am standing in that living room amongst a shattered glass. I feel like I am on that pressure cooker of an airplane ride. I feel like I am on cloud nine in Vegas with the rest of the group. But then on a character level, these are the elements that felt human to me. One's desire, one's reality, and one's escapism. Annie looks like she's having tons of fun as a sex worker. And to be fair, it is an outlet for some women to express themselves, but for others, maybe it's their only chance at getting a good supporting job. Maybe it's their last resort to fund themselves for school. Maybe it's their way of getting the attention that they desire. But when we see Annie outside of work, she's very independent, non-communicative with her roommate. She's taking the subway alone and blasting music on her headphones. There's no one checking in on her past her marriage with Vanya. You can tell that transactional acts have become meandering to her. The opening credits, she's giving someone a lap dance, but her facial expressions look bored, like she doesn't want to be there. They're distant from her clients. She has conversations with other dancers just about how much they have to put on a mask and pretend that they're enjoying their clients' time. They just think that their clients are slimy, weird, and gross. So enter Vanya. He's energetic, rich, charming, within the same age range as Annie, and all of a sudden the walls begin to come down. What was once purely transactional sex services slowly turn into developing feelings. Once Vanya gets Annie's number and hires her for sex services outside of the club, you can see Annie starts to give in to her desire. Each time after the two have sex, Annie becomes more comfortable sitting closer and closer to Vanya up until they are cuddling. From her first hire when Annie is quick to get back into her blue dress, to the night right before they get married and they're both just laying naked next to each other under the sheets. And progressively, Annie wears less and less makeup around him. The clothes she wears become more and more casual and less lingerie stripper-like. She went from a schoolgirl's outfit into an oversized t-shirt. She's also the one that begins to initiate sex without transactional reciprocation. You'll hear the comparison of Anora to Cinderella for sex workers, a rags to riches story. The glass slipper is just now a stiletto. Annie has found a Prince Charming in Vanya. She even has simple aspirations of having her honeymoon at Disneyland in the princess suite. But I think about a glass slipper and I think about its fragility. The problem is Annie has invested her desires and escaped her reality by falling for someone else's escapism. Vanya is a man-child, mooching off mommy and daddy's money, throwing parties, spending extravagantly, literally never being sober, playing games.
So, how old are you?
21? And you?
Older than you?
А сколько тебе лет? 25?
No, I'm 23.
Wow. You act like как будто тебе лет 25.
Okay.
Vanya is just avoiding responsibility and transitioning into the workforce. He doesn't have the grasp of when or how he is supposed to move into the workforce, so he's fine playing games with everyone. Like how he asks his maid to smoke with him, or how he jokes with the casino owner that his suite isn't ready, or literally how he treats Toros and Garnek. It isn't until the ultimate authority, his parents, his lifeline, come into play that reality sets in. I feel awful that Annie does fall for the charm and the glitz and the glamour that Vanya has to offer. Any chance that he saw Annie as anything other than a service for his escapism was eradicated for me when he jokingly said, "If I could marry an American, I wouldn't need to go back to Russia." And then instead of proposing to Annie then and there, he lists a bunch of people before her that he could marry, including strippers back at her club. He only saw Annie as a means to take care of his means. like how he has fast sex but doesn't fully satisfy her until Annie says to slow it down. And then you think about how Vanya has given Annie a bunch of his mother's stuff. Her coat, her scarf, her champagne glass. I do take it as Vanya only saw Annie as transactional for his needs, while Annie begins to feel less transaction between them and more passion. And then there's Igor. Like I said, I paid real close attention to him on rewatch. When you look at Annie's line of work, and I've been using the word transactional a lot, you could turn it into a drinking game.
I'm drunk!
She is only used to showing acts of affection and satisfaction in return for money. Igor shows his affection, or his empathy really, for others with actions without expectation of anything in return. All he does in the movie is make sure Annie is okay, that she isn't going to hurt anyone else or herself, trying to de-escalate the situation, sticking up for her. Annie is so resistant to all his gestures all movie, almost taking it like a chance to get close to her. She keeps calling him a creep and other names that she would refer to basically as her clients at the club. It all culminates into the final 10-ish minutes of the movie, which I need to get into in spoiler fashion. So here's your spoiler warning. I will time code my final thoughts if you haven't seen Anora yet and want to skip this section. Otherwise, spoilers will begin in 3, 2, 1. After the marriage is annulled and Annie and Igor return to New York, he's attempting to make polite conversation. It's the kind of conversation that Annie never had with Vanya, like all movie. Anytime Annie tries to open up to Vanya or ask him about his life, he deflects it.
What do you do to get all this?
I'm a really big drug dealer.
Oh, really?
You trust me? No.
This time when Igor asks Annie questions, she deflects it, and rightfully so. Her adventure is over. Her desires have crumbled overnight. He talks about the meaning behind his name, which means warrior, and I account to this as his persistence to just be kind in all these situations. And then he looks up what Anora means, which means light, bright, and honor. It's interesting how Annie never goes by Anora. All movie, she's correcting anyone that uses her legal name. I don't want to speculate about Annie's life other than what is shown and talked about in the movie, but she knows the amount of Russian language that she does from her grandmother. She's moved far away from her family, and she doesn't go by her birth name. She's trying to detach herself from her older life and work towards a new one. The conversation between her and Igor takes a turn when she brings up that Igor would have assaulted her if he had the chance. All men want out of Annie is sexual gratification. The events of the movie have proven that to her. Vanya used Annie purely as escape. Then the next morning when Igor performs his final act of kindness by returning the ring to Annie, again expecting nothing in return, Annie's instinct is to return the act of kindness with the only way she knows how, a sexual act. So she begins this transaction, and Igor and Annie's mindsets of gratitude being on different wavelengths, Igor leans in for a kiss, seeing Annie's actions more than an act of gratitude. Annie sees this as an advance. She holds Igor back, they stare at each other, and in realization, Annie breaks down crying and Igor holds her. There's no score, there's no dialogue, and the credits roll. And I stay in my seat, heartbroken, frozen, contemplating life, sad out of my mind. Seeing a vicious and unhealthy cycle that Annie needs to break, even if she wants to continue sex work after this whole event, although I think she realizes this scenario as well. Leaving a character at such a vulnerable moment is so powerful, so lingering. I've been hinted this is how Sean Baker likes to end his movies. He just likes to let you sit and think. And to that I say, what a dick move. But what a genius dick move.
You incredibly stupid genius!
And yeah, that's Anora, a movie that I laughed at, that I cried at, that I felt angry with, and it left me to piece myself back together. The anticipation from Cannes is warranted. It did not disappoint me. This is such an incredible movie. I can see some of the critiques that others have of Anora. Did it need to be 2 hours and 19 minutes? Was all the sex and nudity necessary? Maybe you didn't vibe with the ending. I think the runtime adds to how lived in I was with these characters, especially through Annie's deep descent into denial. The same goes for the sex and nudity, immersing us into Annie's day-to-day life as a sex worker. And this movie would not be as strong of a gut punch without that ending. I can't wait to see this movie clean up in nominations and awards this year. Just wow. Anora, I adore ya. 5 out of 5 stars. Thank you for watching. My name is Kyle, and I'm still learning to fall in love with the medium of cinema. If you want to join me on that journey with more rankings, reviews, and deep dives on this channel, both long form and short form, hit subscribe, hit the bell, and follow me on Letterboxd. Comment below your favorite Sean Baker movie, your thoughts about Anora, and is Mikey Madison your awards frontrunner for Best Actress? Don't forget to like the video, and until next time, that's a wrap.